Welcome back again to the imaginary gallery. It's TJ, and as I suspected, the Cognitive Distortions series would not end at simply covering the 10 cognitive distortions that Dr. Burns talks about. I came across another subject or chapter that I found interesting, which may apply to many of you out there. And again, I'm going to paraphrase, but what Chapter 11 talks about is something that many of us have fallen into at times, called the approval addiction. And he says let's just consider your belief that it would be a horrible thing if someone disapproved of you. Perhaps your reasoning is like this. If one person disapproves of me, it means that everyone would disapprove of me. It would mean there was something wrong with me. If these thoughts apply to you, he says, your moods will shoot up every time you're being stroked. And the reason is, you got some positive feedback so you can feel good about yourself. Why is this illogical? Because you're overlooking the fact that it's only your thoughts and beliefs which have the power to elevate your spirits. Another person's approval has no ability to affect your mood unless you believe what he or she says is valid. But if you believe the compliment is earned, it's your belief which makes you feel good. You must validate external approval before you experience mood elevation. This validation represents your personal self-approval. Suppose you're visiting a psychiatric ward of a hospital, and some confused, hallucinating patient runs up to you and says to you, "You are wonderful. I had a vision from God. He told me the 13th person to walk through the door would be a special messenger. You are the 13th. You're God's chosen one, the Prince of Peace, the Holy of Holies. Let me kiss your shoe." Now, would this extreme approval elevate your mood? For real? You'd probably feel nervous and uncomfortable. That's because you don't believe what this patient's saying is valid, so you discredit the comments. It's only your beliefs about yourself that can affect the way you feel. And that's an example he's using to prove out this cognitive therapy. Others can say or think whatever they want about you, good or bad, but only your thoughts will influence your emotion, which I found that to be brilliant. The price you pay for your addiction to praise will be an extreme vulnerability to the opinions of others. Like any addict, you will find you must continue to feed your habit with approval in order to avoid withdrawal pangs. The moment someone who is important to you expresses disapproval, you will crash painfully. Just like the junkie who can no longer get his stuff. Others will be able to use this vulnerability to manipulate you. You will have to give in to their demands more often than you want to because you fear they might reject you or look down upon you. So you're setting yourself up for emotional blackmail, but still believe that other people really do have the right to judge not only the merit of what you do and say, but also your worth as a human being. Imagine you made a second visit to the hospital psychiatric ward, and this time a different hallucinating patient approaches you and says, You're wearing a red shirt. This means you're the devil! You are evil! You are a narcopath!" Would you feel bad because of this criticism or disapproval? Of course not. Why would these disapproving words not upset you? It's simple. Because you don't believe the statements are true. And so you must buy into the other person's criticism and believe that you are no good in order to feel badly about yourself. Brilliant, Mr. Dr. Burns. And he says, did it ever occur to you that if someone disapproves of you, it might be his or her problem? Disapproval often reflects other people's irrational beliefs. He makes an extreme example and says that Hitler's hateful doctrine that Jews were inferior did not reflect anything about the inner worth of the people he intended to destroy. There will be many occasions when disapproval will result from an actual error in your past. Does it follow that you are worthless, no good person? Obviously not. The other person's negative reaction can only be directed towards a specific thing you did, not at your worth. A human being cannot do wrong things all the time. And now he wants to look at the other side of the coin and say that many well-known criminals have had bands of fervent admirers, regardless of how repulsive or horrible their crimes were, like Charles Manson. In reference to approval, he says that it's a fact. Approval feels good. There's nothing wrong with that. It's natural and healthy. It's also a fact that disapproval and rejection usually tastes bitter and unpleasant. This is human and understandable. But you are swimming in a deep, turbulent water if you continue to believe that approval and disapproval are the proper and ultimate yardsticks with which to measure your own worth. Did you ever criticize someone? Did you ever disagree with a friend's opinion? Did you ever scold a child because of his or her behavior? Did you ever snap at your loved one when you were irritable? Did you ever choose not to associate with someone whose behavior was distasteful to you? Then you have to ask yourself, when you disagreed or criticized or disapproved, were you making the ultimate moral judgment that the other person was a totally worthless, no good human being? Do you have the power to make such sweeping judgments about other people? Or were you simply expressing the fact that you held a different viewpoint and the fact that you were upset with what the other person had done or said? For example, in the heat of anger, you may have blurted out to your spouse, "You're no damn good!" But when the flame cools down a few days later, you admitted to yourself that you were exaggerating the extent of his or her badness. Sure, your loved one may have many faults, but it isn't absurd to think your outburst of disapproval or criticism makes him or her totally and forever worthless. If you admit your disapproval does not contain enough moral atomic power to devastate the meaning and value of another person's life, why give their disapproval the power to wipe out your sense of self-worth? What makes them so special? When you tremble in terror because someone dislikes you, you might magnify the wisdom and knowledge that that person possesses, and you have simultaneously sold yourself short as being unable to make sound judgments about yourself. Of course, someone might point out a flaw in your behavior or an error in your thinking, and he hopes they will because you can learn this way. After all, we're all imperfect, and others have the right to tell us about it from time to time. But are you obliged to make yourself miserable and hate yourself every time someone flies off the handle and puts you down?
Well, I just may be this world's first transgender lesbian reptilian shapeshifter combo. They don't make them like us very often, so that's an advertising point for me.
The truth is, I was totally in love with you. It's you didn't trust me, so I went ahead and did the things I did because you said you didn't trust me. So it's your fault. I don't know what you're getting mad at me for. If you wanted me to stick around, you shouldn't have made those false accusations. Because like that one guy you caught me with, nude in the back of his truck, the only reason I did that was because you once said you thought that maybe I was doing that. So I figured, well, if you think I am doing that, well then I better start doing that. So it's your fault. Nothing to do with me, so don't be blaming me for your mistakes.
I am the lesbian narco player. Yeah. Oh, are you sure? I was just kidding.
This is a message to all you transgendered lesbians out there. There is hope. There are people like me out there in the world who are just waiting to get with you. Just look us up.
So I gained a bunch of weight. You're gonna let that stop us? I thought you loved me no matter what. Well, I can see this ain't gonna work, honey. I got somebody else in mind anyway, so ta-ta!